Girivara Dari Yasoda Nandana Brajana Nandana Yasoda Nandana Brajana Ranjana Ramunatira Vanachari Ramunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, fifth chapter, text 11. Kas Tripunyat Chita Pado Vidhanat Satreshu Va Suribir Vidyamanat Ya Karna Nadim Purushaya Yato Baba Pradam Geha Ratim Chinati Kastrinu Padya Tirtha Pado Pinyananat Satreshu Vasurabir Idan Manat Yakarna Nadim Purushaya Yato Baba Pradam Geha Ritim Chinati Kastrip Nunya Tita Pado Pinananat Satre Shivasurapir Idyamanat Kakarna Nadim Purushaya Yato Baba Pradam Geha Ritim Chinati Kastrip Yunya Tita Pado Pinananat Satre Shivasurapir Idyamanat Yakarna Nadim Purushaya Yato Baba Pradam Geha Ritim Chinati Kastrinu Paya Titapado Pinanat Satre Shivasarapir Idyamanat
Karnanadim Purushasyato
Yakarnanadim Purushaya Yato
Samyeharitim Shinati
Baba Pradam Geha Ritim Chinati
Kastrip Nuyatir Tapado Vidanat
Kastrinu Padya Titapado Pinanat
Satre Shuvasuri Viri Jamana
Satre Shivasarapir Idyamanat
Yakarnanadim Purushasya Yato.
Ya karmanadim pradashasya yato.
Apadan Geharatin Chinati.
Bhava pradam geharitim chanati.
Kashripnuyate tapado vidana
Kastri pinunya chitapado pinana.
sache suvasuri virivyamana
Satre shiva surabhiri yamanat.
yakananadim purushasya yato
Ya karnanadim pradashasya yato.
bhava pradam geharatim chinati
Bhava pradam geharitim chanati.
Kastripnuyatir taparo bidana.
Kastri purya chitapado pinana.
Satre Shuvasuri Birhidyamanat.
Satre shiva surabhir idyamanat.
Yakarnanadim Purushasya Yato.
Ya karnanadim pradashasya yato.
Bhava Pradam Geharatim Chinati.
Bhava pradam geharatim chanati.
Kastripnuyatir taparo vidhanat
Kasti puryana chitapado pinana.
Satre Shuvasuri Idyamanat
Satre shiva surabhir idyamanat.
Yakarnanadim Purushasya Yato
Ya karnanadim pradashasya yato.
Bhava Pradam Geharatim Chinati
Bhava pradam geharitim chanati.
Yastrimnuyatirtha parobidana
Kasti purpana chitapado pinana.
Satre Shuvashuribir Idimana
Satre shiva surabhir idyamanat.
Yakarnanadim Purushasya Yato
Ya karnanadim pradashya yato.
Ava Pradam Geharatim Chinati
Bhava pradam geharitim chanati.
Kastrinuyatirtapado Binanat
Kastatu pradashya pinana.
Sastre Shivasura Adyamanat
Satre shiva surabhir idyamanat.
Yakarnam Nidam Purasasyato
Ya karnanani parashasya yato.
Bhava Pradam Geha Ratim Chinati
Bhava pranam geha ritim chanati. But ladies like to chant.
Kashtrinyat chitta parobinhanat
Kasvipuryat chitta padopananat.
Satre Shiva Survir Ijamananat
Satre shiva surabhir idyamanat.
Yakarnanadim Purusasya Yato
Ya karnanani parashasya yato.
Bhava Pradam Geharatim Janati.
Bhava pranam geha ritim chanati. So that's everyone chanting. We're chanting word by word synonyms. Ka, who is that man? Tripunyat, that can be satisfied. Chitta pada, whose lotus feet are all the places of pilgrimage. Abhinanat, from the taxa. Satreshu, in human society. Va, one who is. Surabhi, by great devotees. Idyamanat, one who is so worshipped. Ya, who? Karnananim, in the holes of the ears. Purushaya, of a man. Yata, entering. Bhava pradam, that which awards births and deaths. Geha ratim, family affection. Shanati is cut off. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Who in human society can be satisfied without hearing sufficient talk of the Lord, whose lotus feet are the sum total of all the places of pilgrimage, and who is worshipped by great sages and devotees? Such topics can cut off one's bondage to family affection simply by entering the holes of one's ears. Krishna Katha is so powerful that simply by entering into a person's ear, it can at once give deliverance from the bondage of family affection. Family affection is an illusory manifestation of the external energy, and it is the only impetus for all mundane activities. As long as there is mundane activity and the mind is absorbed in such engagement, one has to undergo the repetition of birth and death in the current material nations. People are most influenced by the mode of ignorance, and some are influenced by the passionate mode of material nature. And under the spell of these two modes, a living being is actuated by the material conception of life. The mundane qualities do not allow a living entity to understand his real position. The qualities of both ignorance and passion strongly bind one to the illusory bodily conception of the self. The best among the fools who are thus deluded are those who engage in altruistic activities under the spell of the material mode of passion. Bhagavad Gita, which is direct Krishna Katha, gives humanity the elementary lesson that the body is perishable and that the consciousness which is spread throughout the body is imperishable. The conscious being, the imperishable self, is eternally existent and cannot be killed under any circumstances, even after the dissolution of the body. Anyone who misunderstands this perishable body to be the self and who works for it in the name of sociology, politics, philanthropy, altruism, nationalism, or internationalism under the false plea of the bodily conception of life is certainly a fool, does not know the implications of reality and unreality. Some of them are above the modes of ignorance and passion and situated in the mode of goodness, but mundane goodness is always contaminated by tinges of ignorance and passion. Mundane goodness can enlighten one that the body and the self are different, and one in goodness is concerned with the self and not the body. But due to being contaminated, those of mundane goodness cannot understand the real nature of the self as a person. Their impersonal conception of the self as distinct from the body keeps them in the mode of goodness within material nature. And unless they are attracted by Krishna Katha, they will never be liberated from the bondage of material existence. Krishna Katha is the only remedy for all the people of the world because it can situate one in pure consciousness of the self and liberate one from material bondage. To preach Krishna Katha all over the world, as recommended by Lord Chaitanya, as the greatest missionary activity, and all sensible men and women of the world may join this great movement started by Lord Chaitanya. So yeah, this is a nice verse, a nice purport Prabhupada's talking about. There's some verses, some lectures that I listened to through Prabhupada, and he was talking how the holes of the ears that don't hear Krishna Katha are like the holes of the snake holes where the snakes live. And he said, you'd never put your arm and leg in the snake hole, right? And such envious persons, the snakes, they'll live in such snake holes. So this was verses like the silk and the turban of a king is just simply a useless burden unless he bows down to the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the eyes on the plumes of peacock feathers are simply useless unless they see the Yashra Vigraha, the form of the Lord. Prabhupada said the eyes on the plumes of the peacock doesn't actually see with those eyes. But so that one's eyes will be compared to such decorations only, because they don't see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So everything in the material world is just all simply useless. Ugra karma. So this the three modes of material nature. Radhanath Swami was mentioning this morning on this verse in the class that I was listening to. He was saying that how the impersonalists, they're giving up the world of Jagan Mithya. This world is false. And they have to take sannyas first and study Vedanta. Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita was saying, yes, they have to learn the impersonal feelings, right? And the intuitions and things like that. And so then after they become enlightened in Brahman, then they again come down to the material platform and perform altruistic and philanthropic activities like opening hospitals, schools, churches, like that. So we're saying if he gave up the world as Jagan Mithya as false, then now why is again returning, right? To what he's doing in the mode of goodness is, well, it's a nice thing, but if the world is false, then, why is he engaging in this activity? So simply, that's what we're talking about, Krishna consciousness. No more coming back down again onto the material platform, engaging in altruistic activities, or again having to take another birth in the material world like that. Even though one might get a more elevated life, there's still always a chance to fall down. One can take birth in an aristocratic family or the family of Brahmanas. So those who are born in altruistic and mercantile rich families, you don't really see them all engaging in God consciousness. You see Ambrish, I guess him and his wife, they're both heirs to a couple of motor companies. And so let's see, he's the heir to the Ford Motor Company. I don't know which motor company his wife was, but they were as a rival. I guess we'll read about that in Srila Prabhupada Leela Amrita. I think they get into that, who Ambrish is and all that. And so he's using his wealth for building the largest temples in India right now, the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium. Right, and the whole Mayapur area there is being developed. So that's the proper way to use one's wealth. Actually, it's if one's born in a rich and aristocratic family, he's given enough time and enough wealth that he has the resources to engage in God consciousness and be charitable. Right, but you see there, Prabhupada's saying a miser is someone who he doesn't do anything with the fortune. Like he'll give an example that the father gives the son some money, $10,000, right? And the son turns it into millions of thousands of dollars. So that's intelligence. But somebody who just keeps the bank balance, just looks at it, doesn't use it for anything, doesn't do anything with it, he's also a miser. So one's also a miser if one doesn't engage in spiritual consciousness. He's also considered to be a miser. He's his own worst enemy. So let's see what else. We're talking about a whole lot of things. So Maitreya is going to be speaking. I looked it up in the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's going to be speaking through the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam about Lord Kapila Dev, and then in the fourth canto about Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj was insulted by the king. His father was the king, and he had more than one wife. So Dhruva Maharaj was sitting on the lap of his father, and I think Dhruva Maharaj's real mother was Suniti. So Dhruva Maharaj's, I guess, stepmother, right? She was rebuked. Dhruva Maharaj said, "You have no right to sit on the lap of the king. Only my son can sit on the lap of the king," right? And so his father favored this wife more, so he was inclined to just go along with what she's saying. And so Dhruva was insulted, and his real mother, Suniti, said, well, great sages who are looking for their desires to be fulfilled, they go to find Vishnu in the forest. So that's what Dhruva Maharaj did, although he was only a 6-year-old boy, he went to the forest. And he was engaging in severe austerities. So just every other couple of days he'd eat something. Then every other couple of days he'd only just drink something. And then after that, only after every couple of days, only take one breath. Stops his breathing. He's standing on one leg. So, and Narada Muni came and gave him a mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So within 6 months, Dhruva Maharaj meditated on the super soul within the heart and chanted Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And he realized the Supreme Person within 6 months, standing on one leg, giving up breathing and eating and drinking. So Prabhupada was saying, this is amazing. You're only just 6-year-old boy. He was so determined to become God conscious that within 6 months, he realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah. And so, let's see what, oh yeah, then there's the allegorical study of the kingdom of King Puranjana. So the King Puranjana has a city and it's got 9 gates. So the body, the figurative body, has 9 holes, right? He has its senses in the 9 holes. So basically, when he exits, like through the north, the west, the south, he's going through a specific sense, right? So, and then at the end of King Puranjana's life, his city is being attacked, right? And he's arrested. There's the life force is a serpent, right? So the life force is arrested, and there's the picture. There's the serpent, the life force, and there's the soul, King Puranjana. He's being ripped away, taken away, arrested, and pulled out of the city of 9 gates, like that. So we'll be reading about that. And of course, so Maitreya Rishi, he's a friend of Srila Vyasadeva, and Vidura, he's a son of Vyasadeva. So that's why he's saying here that he's heard the scriptures, right? The scriptural rules and regulations, the Vedanta. He's heard that from Srila Vyasadeva, but he's not satisfied without the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So because he was the son of Srila Vyasadeva visited regularly like that. And so they received instruction. He heard from Srila Vyasadeva himself. Maitreya Rishi, he's even more exalted. He's a friend of Srila Vyasadeva. So what Radhanath Swami was saying, he's right there in the club with Srila Vyasadeva, the compiler of Vedanta Sutra and Srimad Bhagavatam, right? That he also knows almost as much, or he knows what Srila Vyasadeva knows, right? And so they're giving that example. And let's see, what else? Did Maharaj want to speak or make any comments on this verse? I'm trying to think of what else we were thinking of about this verse. So, because it's one of the principles: hearing, chanting, Shravanam Vishnu Smaranam Padam Sevanam. Right? It's always that hearing about Krishna, remembering Krishna. So there's a saying that we have in this conference: always remember Krishna. Then the flip side is that never forget Krishna. So always remember Krishna and never forget. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. And so that's the whole idea about hearing about Krishna's pastimes actually elevate, liberate, and purify one's materially contaminated heart, and that we can actually really understand what Krishna is and what a spiritual life is. Not some hodgepodge. Prabhupada calls it hodgepodge. They take something from this part, something from this part, and something from this part, right? But that's not the way to understand a Vedic knowledge, or to become self-realized, to become free from the bondage of the 3 modes of material energy. So I don't know. Does that? Yeah. Do you have a question or comment or?
So I was hearing yesterday that in a Bhagavatam purport, I think it's 1.7.6, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning how the mechanical process of hearing and chanting is not what actually brings liberation, but it's the mercy of the Lord. But what's interesting is that we attract the Lord's mercy when we show him that we're really serious about hearing attentively from the realized souls and from the parampara system. And then if his mercy is there, then we can achieve success. What's amazing though is that he does say in that purport the same thing that is said here in this shloka, that simply by entering the ears, it's making one pious, like it's making one free from the sufferings of the material world. But attaining full success of Krishna prema is even more intimate than that. It's one has to get the Lord's mercy by showing him that we're really serious about the process. I just wanted to add that conversation, or add that to the conversation. And I wanted to ask you about, so this Krishna, Prabhupada says the Krishna Katha is the only remedy basically for the society. And it's the greatest missionary activity to spread this Krishna Katha all over the planet. And everyone can join the Sankirtan movement started by Lord Chaitanya. So I wanted to ask about that because oftentimes we find that we may not be able to really talk about Krishna per se, just to anyone and everyone. So could you explain what this means?
Oh, Maharaj has his hands up. Yeah.
You do it by Zoom. Zoom it.
What is it?
Zoom.
Oh, for the question.
It's for it's for the internet. Yeah.
Put it on Zoom?
Yeah. And then you get everyone.
Oh, yeah. Just check the.
It goes right to them, right to you. You can show it at different times. There's so many things. They can ask questions. It's all perfect. It's an arrangement for Krishna Katha.
Right, perfect questions, perfect answers. Yeah, Krishna Katha. Because that's what we're hearing in Srimad Bhagavatam. Vajra's inquiring. And he's inquiring, starting with a real humble submission, too. Beginning like, what is that salvation for the living entities in the Kali Yuga? So Prabhupada says in the purport, it's not really asking this question specifically for himself, but he's not presenting himself as a great learned scholar. He's taking the humble position, and for the benefit of all the living entities who would hear this, he wanted to know on their behalf, right? And then as the questions and the inquiries go on, but the Krishna, he purifies living entity. There's let's see, what is it? The offenses is to follow the rules and regulations only for the sake of following them, not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or not being to be inattentive while chanting the holy names of the Lord. Right, the mind kind of does its thing, So the yogi watches his mind and senses on all sides, like a venomous serpent, venomous a snake, like a venomous envious snake. So just a point of like, some thought kind of comes into the head, just kind of kick it out. Some Maya thought, right? So then just go on hearing, chanting, just keep your concentration on the chanting. Be mindful of that. Be mindful of keeping your concentration on the chanting. But but in the ultimate issue is that Krishna, he purifies the heart living entity. He gives the intelligence from which to come to him. But yeah, but Krishna likes to see the devotee who makes the attempt, right? Kick out Maya out of your head all morning long, right? Go on hearing and chanting attentively, following the rules and regulations, because we're being purified. You can see that we're being purified. We're on the fast track. The Krishna conscious movement in Kali Yuga, we're on the fast track. Other yogis were uh, stopping their breathing and meditating for tens of thousands of years, right? And we're becoming purified on a very, very rapid basis, practically just within this lifetime. It doesn't take very long. Just adhering oneself to the process. There's a devotional service, the hearing and chanting Krishna's names, hearing and glorifying Krishna's pastimes and activities, hearing from Krishna and Bhagavad Gita, hearing about Krishna and Srimad Bhagavatam, following the 4 rules and regulations, like that. The whole program's all set. So all set. It's cut out for us. All we have to do is just follow along, right? Which isn't hard to do. We have a pretty good program. So you guys are pretty fired up on Saturdays going to River Market. Right. Last week we were talking about how do you get that enthusiasm like on a marathon. So I was thinking there's the guy days, what is it? Gita Jayanti, where we distribute Bhagavad Gitas on that day. Isn't there like a Srimad Bhagavatam day like that too, that you distribute Srimad Bhagavatam? So maybe have a big marathon on Gita Jayanti Day. Like that. It'd be an auspicious day for that too. Right? Maybe try to think out of the box, come up with some new programs like that. So are there any other questions or comments, or you have a question?
You said someone who is like practicing bhakti or something. They're a geyser. So is that like just to say like like let's say someone has like something that's going to be passed down into the family, like a business or something, but this person chooses to renounce material life. So
you're talking about somebody who doesn't want their inheritance from their family.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, or they just can't accept it or whatnot.
You had a question about that, or should I?
Yeah, I mean, like, what's the I guess I'm thinking was like, what does the person do in that situation? I mean, I guess my thought would be like, apply it to Krishna or something.
Right. Yeah. Give it to Krishna. But, yeah, Maharaj would like to speak. Yeah.
If we have the ability to use it in Krishna service, like our Ambarish Prabhu, is a great grandson of the Henry Ford, famous automobile inventor. So he inherited millions of dollars. And he took it as his duty, as his service, to engage those funds. One time I was speaking with him in Florida, and he said, I figure I've passed half my life now, approximately, and I've spent quite a few millions of dollars, but I'm planning the next half to spend much more. So that was how he was thinking. That was his duty, how to spend money for Krishna. So that's if you can do that. If not, then just chant Hare Krishna and don't worry about it. Because somehow or other we have to save our soul. If It's like these kings, they could have stayed on. The great kings we see in the Vedic culture, they could have stayed on and continued to rule and be billionaires. But it was time for them to retire. They retired. There's even one chapter. The Pandavas retired timely. Their time was over for them to be ruling. And they passed on the rule to, they didn't have any sons because all their sons were killed in battlefields, etc. But fortunately, they had a grandson, Parikshit. So they invested all their blessings. They put everything, all their trust. He was given the whole empire, the whole world. And he managed wonderfully, and his sons. And so it was continued on. So if you can do it, if it's still part of your time, then do it. If your time is better used in retirement and going back to Godhead, do that. Give it to your descendants.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's in my situation, it's just a business, and so there's not really like an inheritance. It's just like, okay, here's a job that like a trade, like, you know, like here's something for you to start doing. I mean, it's not like there's no, and so it's kind of like it feels kind of like an obligation, like
He'll draw for Krishna. Like I went to art school, so I can draw pictures of Krishna.
But the thing is, like, I don't know, because like if I don't know, like to engage in like, you know, this a business and then also try to be in Krishna consciousness. That's kind of like the question. Is like,
yeah, well, that's why a person gets managers. They get a manager to run the business for you.
And you get the spiritual master who guides him in how to proceed. For example, there was one devotee in the movement, one of the early devotees. His father was very wealthy. His father wanted to engage him in business. And so Prabhupada said, okay, give it a try. He went there, got into the business, and it was too dirty. The business was too contaminated. So Prabhupada called him back. Don't worry about it. So that's according, just like another example in the scriptures, Chaitanya Charitamrita. The Raghunath Das, he was from a very wealthy family. And they wanted him to carry on, naturally, the tradition. And he agreed to be married, and he was married to a woman who was so beautiful that she was more beautiful than an angel, mother said. She was really attractive. And the parents were not exactly pure devotees. They're called almost Vaishnava. They gave lots of charity to the Vaishnava. So they were considered almost a Vaishnava. But he kept running away. He kept running away and going and joining Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. And every time the father would send 10 men, I'd send all these people out to him, they'd go get him, bring him back by force. And so they tried this. This went on and on and on. And Lord Chaitanya told him, for the time being, you stay at home, but you'll get your opportunity. So when the opportunity comes, then Krishna will make all the arrangements. So he did that. He stayed home, and he's even famous, Prabhupada quotes him many times, that he acted expertly in that capacity. One time, there was a disagreement between his father and his uncle. They were two very wealthy persons. They were tax collectors on behalf of the Mohammedan government. But everyone was interested in taking bribes and everything. They were doing all that. So his father and uncle were implicated in some bribe and this and that. And the king was really upset. And he came, he wanted to find him. And they left. So they heard that he was coming. They went away. And Raghunath was there. So they said, okay, we'll take you. But he spoke so nicely. He was a beautiful speaker, very expert. And he convinced them that this was just a little family thing, worked out, nothing serious. Don't take it seriously. And he managed to settle the whole thing. So Prabhupada said, it's not that a devotee is incapable of doing anything in the world. He can only chant. He just walk around and chant. He can't do anything. He's expert. Daksha is one of the qualities of a devotee, is expert. So he can do all kinds of things like Arjuna. Certainly he could chant Hare Krishna and he could remember Krishna. But Krishna wanted him to, he also could fire weapons better than anyone. So therefore he needed, Krishna wanted to engage him in that way. So he became the greatest warrior, and Hanuman defeated Ravana for the Lord. So all these devotees can become expert in their field. But sometimes, as in the case of Raghunath, there was a time when it was the time for him to give it up, and he did. He went, took sannyas, being one of the great six Goswamis of Vrindavan, and he lived under a different tree every night, never thought about women or any of the opulence. So when the time has come, therefore the spiritual master guides us, and he'll make sure we know when the right time to renounce is. Artificial renunciation doesn't do us any good. If it can be used for Krishna, and we can use it. But if we can't, if we're not able to use it in Krishna's service, then we don't need it. Just like the great Kshatriyas. They did their service. Used to, they went through the whole battle of Kurukshetra. I say, why didn't you just, they went through this whole battle. So now they're giving up the kingdom. Why'd you go through it? That was Krishna's arrangement. So Krishna and his representatives, they guide the devotees how to engage all their energies, all their opulence, Manasadeo Gaya Jokachamo, Arpi Luktu Apare Nandakishra. How to engage their mind, their body, their home, everything in Krishna's service. That's the process of devotional service.
Thank you very much for that, Maharaj. Yeah, it's a process called Yukta Vairagya. So yeah, I kind of hope that puts you at ease. There's a lot of open options available to you with your situation. Is if, actually for your practical engagement on that issue, you'd want to consult your spiritual authority and then go from there. It's actually what would be most congenial for you in your spiritual life and this material. It's opulence, your material opulence, like that. What to do with it? Okay, so does that satisfy your question? You're more studies. Yeah, it's like a win-win situation. It's like you can engage in it or not engage in it, but at any rate, yeah, we're following a principle called Yukta Vairagya. It's knowledge. It's not artificial Vairagya or artificial renunciation, but it's to engage everything in the service of Krishna. And Prabhupada was saying, you see our devotees use the jet plane and have automobiles and may wear Western clothing, right? It's for the process of engaging our devotional service and preaching and book distribution and book printing and managerial affairs. You know, the GPC. You know, we fly to India and fly back. And so we're utilizing these things in Krishna service, but not for our own personal aggregation. You know, not for our own personal benefit, but for the benefit of Krishna and for our spiritual master and our service on our duties. You know, like that. So, yeah, it's a win-win-win situation. Okay, any other questions on that, or any other questions? Okay, Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam class Ki Jai.